Welcome to my channel, Baba Eats. I'm here to share meals that I create for my family. In my most recent video, I talked a little bit about some updates that I'll be making to my channel, and one of those things is to talk about having less waste in the kitchen, and today's video is geared toward that. I'll be making two somewhat opposite seeming things. First is chili to use up some beans that I made recently, and second is popsicles to use up some orange juice that is reaching its expiration date. So I recently made some beans as a side dish to accompany a meal, and I had some red beans and black beans in there, as well as some onion and a little bit of carrot. And now I want to make sure that I'm using up those beans, but making it something different. So it feels like a fresh meal, feels like a new taste in the mouth, and something different so that my family doesn't feel like they're eating the same thing over and over. So I'm taking those beans and I'm going to be turning them into a vegan chili. So because I had already cooked these beans previously, the vegetables that were in there, since they were already cooked, got a little bit soft. So I want to add some fresh vegetables into this chili so that there are some vegetables that have a little more bite to them, along with the ones that are a little bit softer from getting reheated again as I'm making them into a chili. So I'm starting out with sauteing those vegetables that I'm going to be adding into this chili. I'm using carrots and onions and letting those get just a little bit tender. Then I'm going to be adding in some firm tofu, and I'm taking that block of tofu and just using my hands to crumble it up into pieces. And I'll saute that tofu up with those vegetables, adding in my chili spices. And I already had a chili blend on hand here, and I'm adding in some salt and pepper, and adding in a can of tomato paste. Tomato paste is something that's always nice to have on hand. It's one of the few canned goods that I like to keep stocked in my pantry, as I always find that it comes in useful when I'm nearing the end of my groceries and need a vegetable or a sauce, and the tomato as a tomato paste form works well for that purpose. So I'm gonna mix that tomato paste in with the crumbled up tofu and vegetables that I have cooking in my pot. And once that is all nicely mixed together, I'm going to add in the beans that I had previously made. And those beans had quite a bit of liquid in there, so I didn't need to add any additional liquid. And I'm going to let that just stew a little bit in the pot. And while that is stewing, I'm going to move on to my next item that I'm sharing with you here, which is to use up some orange juice that has been in the fridge that is nearing the expiration date. And I find that popsicles are a great solution for that. And I didn't have any other juices at this time, so I'm just using that straight up orange juice into my popsicle molds. And if I had other juices on hand, I might mix in some other juice in there to make it more of a blend of juices. But this is a great way to make a little treat and use up that juice. My popsicle mold that I'm using here is a metal mold, and I really like to avoid plastics and silicone in the kitchen. And silicone is a common kitchen tool that's hard to get away from. I do have a couple of things in the kitchen that are silicone. I have the funnel that I'm using to get the juice into my molds, and that funnel does come in really handy to be able to not spill juice everywhere, and it's something that I find myself reaching for, so I'm hanging on to that silicone funnel. Also, it's not something that food is sitting in for a long period of time. It just briefly runs through the funnel. But I don't like to use things that sit in silicone or bake in silicone because I feel that I can taste it. And I know a lot of people use silicone in the kitchen and don't find any awkward taste with it. I can taste the same thing and taste that silicone taste and give it to my husband, and he thinks it tastes fine. So I think I have a very sensitive palate for that silicone taste. But silicone is basically a petroleum type product, and it has oils in it that leach out over time, and it's something that I want to avoid in my kitchen. So I try to use other materials that are not going to give that taste to my food, and that's why I like using this metal popsicle mold. So after I get the orange juice into that popsicle mold, I am sticking in some wooden sticks and then sticking those into my freezer drawer so that they can become popsicles. And that happens really quickly, just a few hours in the freezer, and those popsicles will pop right out. So while my popsicles are in the freezer, I'm getting back to my chili and going to eat that for lunch. I like to add in some greens into my chili to make it a little more nutritious. It has beans, which are a great source of fiber, but also greens are a great source of fiber. Get that additional iron in there. And I like to have as much color as I can in my food when I'm making it. So I'm just chopping up some greens or ripping up some greens and putting those into the pot. And I like to make them into smaller pieces by chopping or ripping them up so that I don't get any long stringy pieces in my chili. And now the chili is done. Those greens are just slightly cooked or wilted in there, so they still have that green color and haven't become just kind of mixed in and unrecognizable in the chili. I think that is nice for the visual to add those greens in later. And now I'm gonna give it a taste. Tastes pretty good. Really hot since I just got it out of the pot, but pretty good. Now I'm gonna serve this up to my family, and we'll be back to show you how I take the popsicles out of the popsicle mold. So to get the popsicles out of the popsicle mold, I like to just use a mug of water, and I have a standard coffee mug here that I'm just filling up with tap water close to the top of the mug, leaving a little space so that when I stick my popsicle in there, it's not gonna spill everywhere. And I stick my popsicle in the cup of water for a few seconds. And as I have it in the water, I'm turning it a little bit to get some movement in the water while I'm pulling on the popsicle stick. And really quickly, once just that outer layer of the popsicle has melted enough, the popsicle will slide right out of the mold. And then it's ready to eat and tastes just like orange juice. Yummy. A great way to use up that old orange juice. And my daughter loves popsicles. I find that it's a nice treat for her, helps while she's teething, and I like it better than drinking a cup of juice. It just feels like more of a treat when I give it to her, and not getting that sugar as quickly because it takes a little while to eat a popsicle. And these are pretty big popsicles, so something this big will usually share since she doesn't eat an entire popsicle by herself usually. So today I shared with you 2 ways that I used up some leftovers or things that were nearing expiration in my fridge. These are great ways to avoid food waste. There's a lot of different things that can be incorporated into chilies, like vegetables that are getting wilted and beans that you've had cooked for a while, even meats that you've had in the fridge that you want to remake into something else. Chili is a great way to use up those items, and great in the winter time to have a warm, filling, and a little bit spicy meal to keep you toasty. And juices that are nearing expiration, popsicles are always a go-to for me for that purpose. Sometimes I'll add some fruit or multiple juices in there, and it works out great. Even in the winter, we sometimes like to eat a popsicle treat. Thanks for joining me on my channel, Baba Eats. Hope you enjoyed these strategies for a low-waste kitchen, and I look forward to sharing more with you in the future.